What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessner here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are looking back at 2023. It's our annual year in review episode. I always enjoy doing these. Invariably, I leave somebody out or some memory out because we're just so blessed to have so many great guests on the show and just a lot of great rock and roll memories over the course of 12 months. But we do dig up some highlights and reminisce a little bit about some of the fun we've had this past year on the Talk Louder podcast. And, we're talking favorite episodes or memorable guests, I should say. We touch on some concerts. We talk about the Kiss farewell. And I go on about a great gig that I saw at the end of 2023. A band called Fugitive.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to think about. Reflection of great episodes is basically why we do these year-end wrap-ups. I feel like we did one last year that was cool, but it wasn't respectfully done. I feel like as like an embrace how much fun this actually is. And, have our own minds blown just by, we get to fanboy out on some cool shit.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I think one of the things I enjoy about the year end is that we get to, as you say, step back and look at it as spectators on the sidelines. We're not caught up in the actual conversation with the guest anymore. We're not caught up in the preparation for the episode.
Yeah.
To look back and just go, dang, dude, we had so-and-so on the show. That was awesome.
Well, hold on a second. I want to give a shout out to Rob Chavez. You may know him from Rob's Metal Works in San Antonio. He commented on a post the other day, and he actually did a little year-end wrap-up inadvertently. He wasn't even trying to say anything other than fine body of work this year, my friends. I believe, to paraphrase his quote.
I saw that. Yes.
Thank you, Rob Chavez, for saying that, because I stepped back and I was like, well, he's kind of right. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
and by the way, that's coming from a very credible source. Rob has had his own cable television metal show in San Antonio for years and years and years. So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he mingles with cool rock and roll folk and carries a microphone in his pocket just like we do.
Yeah.
Now he's very respectable. And for him to say something like that on just our silly little show here that's something. And when he said that, I was like, damn. And I may have responded to him. I think I did. Thanks, bro. But this is more legit. So thanks, Rob, for noticing that and reminding us that we actually had some cool shit going on, which also may have prompted me to reminded me that, hey, we need to do a year-end wrap-up. This was pretty rad year. So
yes, it was.
Yeah. And you know what? This episode probably didn't need one of this little intros. We could have just started and go, hey, what's up? Badass year we had. But I didn't want to kind of break the mold of what it is that we have going on. Our routine seems to be a happy vibe and process.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't bother fixing it.
Yeah. Thanks for checking us out. And this is our 2023 year-end wrap-up on the Talk Louder podcast.
So welcome to our 2023 year in review. Jason, I can't believe we've been doing this now for going on 3 years. In February, we are a few weeks away from hitting our 3rd year anniversary. This episode is airing in early January. So in early February, we're going to hit the 3-year mark. And I never thought we'd see that happen.
Yeah, you can't foresee any kind of podcast future.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I mean, remember, you just don't know. You don't know shit. And we fell into some really great moments this year.
Absolutely.
Or in 2023, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The funny thing is it's as we tape this, it's not even mid-December, but we had time to do our wrap up, and I wanted to do it. We kind of did one last year, and I thought it was real cool.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do this no matter what. And yeah, so it's not even mid-December, and we haven't even aired possibly some of my favorite guests or favorite episodes, if you will. They haven't even aired yet. Like in the next couple of weeks, there's some really cool stuff coming.
Yes.
So, I mean, I feel like it's okay to talk about today because this won't air until after these have already, see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually, we're already back to the future. See what I did? We're already
as if it wasn't confusing enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about anything we want. Obviously, I've got a few milestones I'd like to acknowledge for 2023. Number one, of course, I want to thank our viewers and our listeners. I can't believe we're pushing our third year of doing this. And we couldn't do it without you. I know it sounds cheesy. I know it sounds like a cliche, but trust me when I tell you that Jason and I would not put in the time every week to make this happen on a weekly basis if we didn't enjoy the feedback and the fact that you're out there listening and commenting and appreciating the show. And we do it as much for ourselves as for anyone, but it sure is fun to know that there's other people out there that enjoy it. So a shout of gratitude to all of our viewers and listeners from 2023 and previous and moving into the future.
And this is where Jared would add in crowd noise and like whistles and like all kinds of. This is where he would go to the between the songs on Kiss Alive.
I was just going to
steal the audience and like throw it in there. You know.
Yeah, pipe in Kiss Alive 2 applause.
Sure.
Please. But seriously,
Kiss Alive 3 maybe.
Anything besides crickets.
Right. Because that's what we got right now.
Yeah. But I think I think we owe it to everyone to say thank you for keeping us motivated and for, leaving your likes and comments and subscribing and chiming in with your comments and things like that. We do enjoy having you along for our ride, as goofy as it can be sometimes. I also want to thank our web designer, Scott Moon. If you haven't noticed, our website was completely redesigned in 2023, thanks to our good buddy, Scott Moon. He is a talented web designer, graphics designer guy, a super sweet guy, really cool dude. And if you haven't been to our website,
Moonray Designs.
Moonray Designs, look him up if you need web work or anything of the like. Scott is a super cool guy, and he came to us and said, hey, let me know if you want to refresh your website. You've had the same kind of look and feel for a couple of years. And he threw out some ideas and we bounced some things off of him and boom, he made it happen. So if you haven't been to talklouderpodcast.com in a while, go revisit it. It's got a whole new look. It looks amazing. And there is a page that lists links to all of our previous episodes. I think we're up to about 175 guests. You're going to find somebody in there that you want to listen to and watch if you missed them the first time, or watch them again. There's a lot of great episodes worth rewatching as well.
Yeah, it can be as fun as watching paint dry.
And Jason is now our publicist.
So, well, I want to thank you, Dave, because there are some episodes where I'm sitting on my thumb. And I appreciate you, your research and the way that you handle, keeping it going as best you can, because you prod and pry information in, I feel like, a correct way that I don't really. I'm more or less coming at our guests, when we have guests, coming at it from a fan's point of view, and that's hard for me to not do.
Sure.
And I know that you're in the same boat. I think that
absolutely.
you are coming from the same place as I am when I say that, but
true.
It's important for me to acknowledge your, I'm waiting for you to hang up your diploma of journalism or whatever you call it on the wall behind you, but you don't seem to have that displayed.
It's not rock and roll enough. There's too much rock and roll in the way, as you can see.
Does rock and roll get in the way? Is that what you're saying? I think life gets in the way of rock and roll.
Not in this house. Yeah.
No, rock and roll is kind of number one in your house. I mean, you're hanging skulls and rock and roll shit in the kitchen. So
yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I've said it all along. I think we make a pretty good team.
If people watch, if people have seen, a few episodes, they know what I mean. Yeah. You're keeping the train on the rails the whole time. I'm good at interrupting. I'm good at talking over everybody. Apparently I am. And thank you.
We're all guilty.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But let's get into talking about some of our episodes that we had in 2023.
Yeah, Dave, I want to do that, but real quick before we do that, since we're giving credit where credit is due, another shout of thanks to our producer Jared Tuten, who has kept this thing afloat for 3 years. We say it every year. This is all his fault, folks. So if you don't like us, send your hate mail to Jared Tuten. That's Jared Tuten. This was all his idea.
He's going to appreciate you saying his name 20 times. Because people are good at playing that video game, the internet, where you can look anybody up.
Yeah, so. Well, we owe a lot to Jared. He keeps us on track. He handles the technical side of this thing. He handles the behind the scenes stuff. This whole thing was his idea in the beginning. I think we've said that before. But he is as much a part of this team as me and Jason. This team is a 3-man band, and
he's kind of trained us.
It's a power trio, and
didn't he kind of
see Jason, or you don't see Jared, and you don't hear him, but he's always there.
But he kind of trained us, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, he did. I mean, we didn't know anything about podcasting.
Well, and we were trying to, we were just kind of goofing a little bit and winging it, and we still do that because, man, if it's over scripted, it's just not good. Some food for thought. I had a show on public access for a while called what was it? The Hard Show. That's what it was called. And I was like a VJ. I would talk about bands and video, and I had a few guests every once in a while. It wasn't a great show. I don't know if any of it's on YouTube. And I interviewed a few bands. I interviewed like Children of Bodom and a couple other people, and it was a recorder, a camera, and that kind of a thing. It was horrifying. But I found out through that experience, I found out that every time I sorted my early episodes when I was doing that, I scripted. I would write out stuff that I wanted to mention and talk about, and verbatim I would read stuff. Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Jason, and you're watching The Hard Show. I'm not even exaggerating. That's what it came off to me. I mean, of course, when I watched it, I knew I was reading, but I swear I looked like I was reading. And I wasn't technically, holding the paper up in my face and reading it, but it sounded like I was fucking reading it.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing it. and I just had PowerPoints, and I knew who it was going to be. I knew I had a list of videos. Yeah, up next we got, whatever. And they would play, and I'd come back. Hey, what's up? And I would just totally wing it and hang out. So much cooler of a way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, lessons learned often come from things that you won't do again, So I'm as new as this as you are, maybe newer. I mean, as far as broadcasting, I've done print journalism for a long, long time, but
it's different when you have to shove a microphone in your face and actually perform.
Exactly.
In a way, it's not really performing, but within some kind of guideline.
You got to keep a conversation rolling, and that's not always easy.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, and you're entertaining. You want to have a story to tell, and you want to be good at doing that, whatever that might be, to get that across.
Yeah.
I want to throw a shout out and a thank you to the Bat Lord.
Yes.
Stuart Laurence.
Yes, indeed.
Who found the cool font that is our logo.
Yeah.
He put together that little video you see at the top of every episode, which is really awesome. It's still awesome.
Yeah.
I can't imagine right now us having a new one, a different one. I really, really like it. And he just went wing ding, threw it together. That's Jared Tuten. Here we go again. Who created that song, wrote that little song that's like, that's Jared.
Yes.
And it's pretty awesome still. So I'm pretty proud of that part of it. And I'm just glad that we were able to have resources to just, hey man, sure, here you go. And boom, we have this badass intro thing that we still use all the time. And it's real basic. I mean, other podcasters, I bet, see it and go, whatever. But because they can see it and go, oh, that was made with this application, and that's recorded on this, and sounds like they're using blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't fuck you. I don't care if you're more badass than we are. I'm saying I didn't have to do shit. I just called up my buddies and went, hey man, can you make me a fucking thing? And they went, sure, boom, and it was fucking done.
They went, you're doing a podcast?
Well, once they got over that, right?
Right.
Let's talk about an episode that happened in 2023, man. What do you got?
So anyway, big thanks to Stuart, Jared, and our listeners and viewers. Episodes in 2023, man, I feel like we hit a bunch of home runs towards the later part of the year, and we should talk about them. But I also don't want to forget some of the guests we had at the early part of 2023. I went back and took a look, and I found some people that I remember being really, really cool. But you know what? In fact, I'll kind of start from the beginning of the year, because a lot of folks are going to remember some of the more recent stuff. I'll tell you a guy that really surprised me, and I think he surprised you, and I thought it was one of the coolest episodes we had all year, was Mike Tramp from White Lion.
He was fun.
He was so much fun. And I wanted him on the show because he had an album to promote. And I knew that his name would ring bells with our audience, of course. And I'm a fan. So that checks a bunch of boxes right there. But I didn't know what to expect from him as a guest. I never interviewed him in the past. And he turned out to be so cool and chill and fun, and his stories were great. His personality was amazing. And he stood out to me as one of the coolest guests. And he is not somebody that I necessarily would say, 12 months later that I'd look back and go, man, Mike Tramp was one of my favorites, but he absolutely was.
Wow. Yeah, he was fun, and I do remember it very well. And I'm glad that he's, sticking to the game and being relevant and playing some shows and just being Mike Tramp, whether he's playing White Lion tunes or other stuff, these acoustic gigs that he's doing, or whether it's a full band. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Having him just come on and talk about it and hang out. because he was just kind of a dude. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I had my, all I had to go, I'd never met him before. I had met his guitar player, the White Lion guitar player. What's his name?
Vito Bratta.
That's right.
Yeah.
Killer guitar player. Met him when the Toys were doing press in New York. And he was just at the label hanging out, sitting at a table. And I was like, dude, what's up? That was about it. But I had never met Mike. And he was super nice. And it wasn't like this pretty boy, you know, who's like is a screamer. He's like a crooner more, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's more of like
he's got a silky voice, man. Definitely.
Yeah, he can sing with a Fry vocal, you know, like some kind of grit, but it's natural. And he doesn't really he's not pretentious.
Not at all.
I think that he means it. And so I respect that.
Yeah. He was great. I mean, blew me away. Anyone watching or listening, I strongly encourage you to go back and look up the Mike Tramp episode. We had such a great time with him. And the thing that I remember a couple things about the episode. Number one, I happened to be wearing a Thin Lizzy t-shirt. And right at the start of the episode, he reached over and grabbed a statue of Phil Lynott that a fan had given him. And he went on about it. And it turns out that Phil is one of his favorite songwriters because of that whole storyteller sort of vibe.
Yep.
And he went on about that. And it was really insightful and really cool. And if you think about White Lion songs, a lot of them have a message. It's not just, I mean, as good looking as Mike was on MTV and as many girls as he had swooning around him, I mean, the lyrics to Little Fighter and When the Children Cry, those are relevant messages. They're intelligent messages. So he gets that from Phil Lynott and Bob Dylan to a degree, he said.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was really cool. He was a much deeper guy than I thought. And the other thing I remember is as we were wrapping up, he said he wanted a Dangerous Toys t-shirt.
Well, I better get on that because it's been a year.
Yeah, you better get on that.
So let's move forward. I want to go ahead. I want to jump all around. You know, my attention span is kind of short these days, like everybody else. But I do recall the more recent episodes that we've done. George Lynch, I know we've talked about him quite a bit, but his episode, once again, just like Tramp, I had no idea what to expect.
Right.
I didn't know if he was going to be harsh or, snooty or didn't want to be there, but he was funny.
Yeah.
And he was chill and he was cool. And I really liked it for mainly those reasons. And his stories were off the chain.
Yes.
So
we pulled a lot out of him.
Memorable.
And he was, definitely one of the more memorable guests in 2023. And I didn't know what to expect either. As you said, you could think that he might come across as pretentious or high strung or uptight or whatever. But he had such a sarcastic, deadpan sense of humor that it's like at 1 minute you didn't know if he was joking, and then at the other, a second later you realize he just pulled one on you and it was hilarious. And then when you asked him a question that had some depth to it, instead of shutting it down or blowing it off, he really went deep, and we got great information out of him.
Yeah, it was good
on some subjects that, he could have thought as being sensitive and maybe didn't want to go there, but he was very forthcoming and a lot of fun. I mean, I think when you and I got done with him, we texted each other and we were like, I didn't know what to expect, but that guy just had me rolling, man. Yeah, he was a lot of fun. George Lynch for sure.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, 2023 also marked the year that we got two of my heroes on the podcast. We had Tracy Guns twice, and we finally got Tammy Down, who anyone who knows me knows what a big fan I am of Tammy. And both guys were super, super cool, super, super chill. And Tammy, I've been chasing for a while. And I was worried that once we finally got him, I was going to find out that the reason he was so elusive is because he maybe didn't have much to say. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. He sat down with us and started talking, and it was like three bros at a barbecue. And he was a lot of fun. And he led us to believe that we may very well finally expect possibly a full album of Faster Pussycat material in 2024, because he was hard at work when we had him on the show, mixing tunes. And so speaking in a way that led us to believe that he's secretly cooking something. So I hope that turns out to be true. I loved having him on the show. I know that you've had some history with him.
Oh, yeah.
And in the very same breath, Tracy Guns, one of my heroes, he was kind enough to be on the show twice. Once to talk about LA Guns, of course, and then the second time to talk about his side project, Blackbird Angels. Tracy was a lot of fun. And we got that second episode because another one of the highlights of my year was going to see LA Guns in Houston in late August. And those guys showed me one of the best times I've ever had at a rock show in my life. Me and my buddy Buzz ended up hanging out on their bus and talking and drinking and just hanging out all night. They sent me on my way with a bottle of autographed Jack Daniels. And during that conversation, I asked Tracy if he would join us again on the show, and he is a man of his word, so he did. Really enjoyed having him.
Well, I'm glad that he is enabling you and Buzz to act like you're 20 years old again.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
That's important, man.
Yeah.
We're all busy enough being middle-aged men. It's nice to go back and be a little less responsible and just kind of focus on the rock and the good time and all the guys in LA Guns. Johnny Martin's my boy. He's the guy that kind of kicks things off for me. But thanks to Johnny, I've gotten to know the rest of the guys in the band.
What about Sean? You hang with Sean a little bit?
I do not know Sean that well. I saw him briefly that night, but I don't really know him that well. He's a guy we need to get on the podcast.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
We've had his brother on, so we should have him on.
Yes. His brother is Jeff Duncan. For those who don't know, Jeff is the one of the guitar players in Armored Saint. And Sean has been around for a number of years and is currently the drummer for LA Guns. So
on that note, we had Joey Vera.
Yes. And I think he completed is that right? Was he the last member of Armored Saint?
Well, it was a year ago. This month, a year ago, I had just finished up, mid-November or whatever, doing that trek with Armored Saint.
Right.
And then we had Joey on, I want to say sometime January, like early year.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was one of the first episodes we had in the new year. I don't know the date.
That's right.
Doesn't matter, but he was always good. And man, he's a busy guy. I can't even count all of the projects that he's busy with on one hand. So.
Yeah. Oh, they won't fit on one hand.
Right. On that note, moving, and related, the King, Brian Slagle.
That was awesome. Yes.
One of my favorite episodes because, as you probably hear me say 10,000 times, what he's done for rock music in general and heavy metal specifically, he changed the world. He changed the way that young rockers feel about music when they collect it, when they buy it, when they search for it. Fanzines and record stores and, posters, posters and records and cassettes. Oh my, he is God, he's like one of the last moguls,
Yeah. Right.
to keep the flame lit. Right.
Right. Brian Slagle, of course, the CEO and founder of Metal Blade Records, which we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to that roster. He's the first guy to put out a commercial recording of Metallica. So
Yeah.
There's that, among many, many, many other things. I really enjoyed that episode too. He is a really interesting guy, obviously very bright, obviously very passionate about what he does. And I love to see a guy like that succeed at the level he's succeeded at, because basically he's following his passion and he's doing it with a work ethic that just doesn't sleep. So those two things put together, and he's dealing with a relatively a style of music that's not doesn't have the broadest commercial appeal.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Lizzie Borden and Armored Saint, and you go back to the days of Slayer and Metallica and things like that, that's Brian Slagle, and he's still doing it today. And he's done very well for himself, and he's done very well for the bands that he's helped launch. And so, what a success story. I learned a lot listening to him and talking to him, and I really enjoyed that episode as well.
Yeah, that's got to be one of my favorites for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you know who goes hand in hand with that episode, since one episode sort of leads to the others? I really enjoyed having DJ Will on the show.
Yeah.
He was a great guy also.
He's one of my oldest friends, and you know, was a liaison to Metal Blade Records, as well as you know, helped get a few cool bands signed, and he was on a lot of bands were on his radar. One of the coolest things, to go step back for a second, is when you held up the Johnny Law record and Brian got giddy about it. That was pretty cool.
Right.
So, you know, you could have done the same thing about Will and talk about Angkor Wat, you know, stuff like that. So, yeah, those Johnny Law, it was great having those guys on.
Yeah, Johnny Law, for those who aren't familiar, is a band that was sort of, you know, they I don't know where they would call home. They had roots in El Paso, and then they went to Atlanta to do the recording. But I think by and large they were based out of Austin. They all ended up living in Austin, and they all became friends of myself and Jason. And so they were kind of one of the hometown heroes that actually got signed and put out a record you could hold in your hand. And they did some pretty cool touring. And but on the larger scale of commercial success, they really didn't make a huge name for themselves. So when I pulled that record out and I showed it to Brian, he was like, "Oh my God, somebody has that!" And then he told us some stories behind it. The record, by the way, was produced by a very young Brendan O'Brien, who ended up doing amazing things with Bruce Springsteen and the Black Crowes and his roster,
Rick Rubin stuff.
Yeah. So DJ Will, Brian Slagle, they were a lot of fun. You know who else I enjoyed? Speaking of hometown boys,
Paul Lydell.
Yeah, Paul Lydell for sure. Absolutely. Hey, you can't go wrong with Paul Lydell.
No, of course not.
That was a recent episode. So if you go to our website, and you won't have to dig back too far to find Paul, he's got a new project called Paul Lydell's Scream Therapy. But he's probably best known to a larger audience as the guitar player in Dirty Looks, and also in Jason's band Dangerous Toys. And it was fun catching up with him. We see him all the time, but he is kind of one of the unsung guitar heroes. And I enjoyed having him on the show to talk a little about his past and his current project. But the guy I was going to mention as a hometown boy done good, I don't know that he's originally from here, but we've known him for years and years and years as an Austin area guy, and that's John Moyer, bass player for Disturbed.
Yeah.
He was a great guest.
I want to press pause, and I just want to interrupt you, I should say.
Yeah.
John Moyer, probably in the early 2000s when he was in Soak.
Yeah.
I didn't really know him yet when he was in Soak. And then, of course, you know, I started seeing him around and conversing with him and hanging and learning about him and watching him play. And we have history with our involvement with the Union Underground.
Right.
But enough about that. I've always thought that he's just a bad motherfucker. So there you go. Having him on just because he's a bad motherfucker is enough for me. But yes, it doesn't surprise me that he's still killing it, but he's always been killing it.
Yeah.
So to have him on here and hear his knowledge and wisdom was fun.
Yeah, he had stories for days, and he's another one of those guys that I appreciated. He let me poke and dig, and he would come clean. I mean, he worked with Scott Weiland, he worked with Scott Stapp, two guys that have been known in the industry to be difficult to work with. And John pulled no punches. To his credit, he admitted these guys were a pain in the ass to work with. So it was really interesting to hear him be so blunt and honest about it. And then, of course, all of the other projects that he's been involved with beyond Disturbed, which is one of the biggest metal bands on the planet and has been for years. So
they're killing
props to John for being on the show and for just being a cool dude and a cool hang and being so honest.
I got two words for you.
Yeah.
Jarvis Leatherby.
Yes, he's on my list. You know, I loved that episode.
Tell me about Jarvis Leatherby now. I am proud, patting myself on the back, proud to be able to introduce you to the world that is all Jarvis.
Yes, as you should be. I really enjoyed that episode. And I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about him. Mm-hmm. And I've heard you, and even more so, I've heard Sean Weingartner, our good buddy here in Austin, Texas, go on and on and on about this band Night Demon and this guy, Jarvis Leatherby. And it was one of those episodes, you know how, this is how it works, people. Sometimes Jason comes up with a name and I don't even know anything about this person, and I do a little homework and I end up getting educated on the show. And then there's times I bring somebody to the table, I pitch it to Jason. He goes, I don't know squat about this person, but okay. And then he ends up learning something. And
just so everybody knows, that scenario happens more often than not.
Well,
I'm cool with it.
But I got, we just got done talking about Slagle and DJ Will, and now we're on to Jarvis Leatherby. All three of those are to your
They know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jarvis was one of these guys that I really enjoyed. Again, it kind of goes back to the whole Brian Slagle thing. Here's a guy that is so passionate about music that he not only plays it, he tries to move it forward in other ways. He has a record label. He produces records. He manages multiple bands. And he also gets in the van and does it himself with his bands. I really enjoyed that guy. And by association, I was exposed to the music of Night Demon, and I really loved everything I heard about Night Demon. So if you're watching or listening and don't know anything about Night Demon, think, early Maiden, early Priest, early, that whole new wave of British heavy metal, the forerunner to what might be considered power metal, a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons type of stuff. And there you have Night Demon. And it's really well done. And Jarvis as a personality was just a super cool dude. I could see myself hanging out with him all night.
He's also in the legendary Cirith Ungol.
Yes.
He's in the revamped version of Cirith Ungol.
That's right. And by the time
legendary band from California that was like prog before, like not in any way afraid to be different and be metal and weird at the same time.
Right.
Kind of you know what I mean? Because, you think heavy metal in 82 or 81 or whenever they started. And it's not what's in the picture that's in the dictionary.
No.
And if you watch the Brian Slagle episode, as well as hear Jarvis talk about it, it took a while for them to take off or get anything. And at one point, they even quit. They stopped. Yeah. And then Brian Slagle talks about, man, I was going to some German festivals and there's all these people wearing Cirith Ungol swag. And I'm going, wait a minute, what? And thanks to Brian Slagle, I mean, he helped introduce that band to the world. Well, anyway, Jarvis is in the band as well as Night Demon. I first met Jarvis It had to so long ago. Night Demon was touring with supporting Raven,
Mm.
and I saw them downtown Austin. It was it was on Red River, Red 7.
Oh yeah,
it was at that place.
Yeah,
outside.
Yeah,
And it wasn't packed or anything. And man, it was just so great. And Raven hadn't been here in a long time, so that was special for me. But I met some of the guys in Night Demon, and if I met Jarvis, it was like, hey, dude. It wasn't like, I don't think he recognized. There was no like, I know that dude. It was none of that. I didn't. It was later on that we kind of connected. So
right.
Cool to have him on. Great guy. People should check that out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought him up because I was going to bring him up if you didn't. But something that people can keep their eyes and ears open for, Cirith Ungol is going on tour in 2024. So by the time you hear this episode, there will be plans in the works to put that band on the road, and it's going to be their final tour. And I think they either already have or will have an album out to support it. So you're going to get one last crack at checking out Cirith Ungol in 2024, and Jarvis will be in the band.
Yeah.
Helping to steer that ship. So we even got a glimpse into their rehearsal space when we had him on the episode. Remember that? He kind of took us on tour. He took the camera around and everything.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I want to bring up John Gallagher.
Yes.
We just mentioned Raven because they put out a new record.
Mm-hmm.
All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Yes.
Which is superb. If you're a Raven fan and you like that kind of Raven that's off the chain, just crazy athletic rock, over the top, no holds barred, a little bit of everything, thrown into the blender on Crush. The button that says Crush.
Yeah. They named that after Raven.
Yeah. So
Blenders didn't have the Crush button until Raven came along.
That's right. Oh, I like that. I love that episode too because John is just super cool and fun and nonstop, and can still sing crazy as shit like he did when he was a kid, and are one of the originators of the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
And friends with Jarvis Leatherby.
Yeah.
So all of this, you see where we're going to get our connections. We hold the crystal ball high and we shake it up and down. And that's the magic 8-ball. Never mind.
One person leads to another person.
Yeah, that's right. It's incestuous, if you will.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of names I can say, but I feel like I'm stepping on your toes.
No, not at all. But I'll bring one up that I know meant a lot to you, and how could it not?
You're reading my mind again, aren't you?
I think so. You tell me. I was going to say Neil Smith.
No, but that was really a badass episode.
Yeah.
I mentioned that episode to someone the other day. Because we were talking about songwriting, we were talking about who wrote what. Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. I recently did with Claudio Bergaman, who is an artist who's been a guest on the show Talk Louder before.
Yeah. Great guy.
He does a thing with friends of his where you'll talk about your top 5 album cover art, like mainly art and not necessarily the music.
Right. Because he's
of course
an artist.
we end up talking about the music, but we start with the album cover, and my top 5 were not in any order, but Elton John, Captain Fantastic, Iron Maiden Debut, and Iron Maiden Killers. And one of them also was Love It to Death. And I got to mention that the reason, the picture on the back, Neil is with a cane and sitting down, is because Alice shot him in the foot.
That's right. Yeah.
So I got to bring that up because thank you to the Talk Louder podcast. It's educational.
Yes, I've been trying to tell people. Yeah, Neil Smith, the original drummer for the Alice Cooper Band, was a great guest. I think we owe a shout of thanks to Paul Unger for helping put that one together. But Neil, there's another one, obviously a legendary figure. Got to admit, it's like you get a little nervous going into some of these episodes when you're dealing with somebody of that stature, because that they don't have to give you the time of day. And you also are a huge fan, so you don't want to be like stepped on by somebody that you admire so much. And he was perfect, man.
Isn't it really cool that someone like Paul Unger, who's not a musician, he's a fan?
Yeah.
Isn't it really cool that a fan can just call up dudes in Alice Cooper's band and go, "Hey, man, you want to be on a podcast? These are my friends." And they'll be like, "Sure, Paul."
Yeah.
What kind of fan can do that? Oh, I got these dudes on speed dial. Just, "Hey, dude, are you playing golf?"
Right.
That's pretty special. And it also says a lot about Paul Unger.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Paul. We really enjoyed. Neil was great, full of stories. The one you just told about, because I always thought that back photo of the Alice Cooper Band on the back of the Love It to Death record, where Neil is sitting in the center. He's the drummer and he's sitting in the center of the photo, which is typically the spot reserved for the singer. Neil is in the center, sitting on a
pedestal,
a plexiglass pedestal of some sort with a cane. And I always thought it was just for looks, because he looks so damn cool. He's the coolest looking guy on that photo. And it was like, nope, Alice shot me in the foot during a drunken rabbit hunt.
Yeah.
So we learned that on the episode.
Well, and you look at the photo closely, for the most part, they're all wearing the same clothing that they're wearing on the front photo, the front cover of Love It to Death. They're all wearing the same glammed out clothing, right?
Yeah.
And Neil is standing. So, I'm sure that he got tired and blah, 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 blah. And I learned that a fashion photographer, I'm not going to remember his name, but he is credited. He took that photograph, both of those photographs. And if you look at the front cover, I'm such a nerd. The front cover is like a spotlight. And then the back cover, it's like the room is lit up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting shadows going on in both photos, and it's obviously a different pose. But I love that album cover, and all of these things come to mind now when I think about the songs and I think about the cover, and all of these things because of Talk Louder. So thank you, Talk Louder.
Yeah, that's one of the byproducts of this, you and I being such nerds, and hopefully our audience walks away with the same thing, the same feelings. It's like, I've been listening to this record for years and I never knew that. That's awesome. Now I can never look at it the same way again. Right. And that's awesome,
Right. By the way, Neil is wearing his cowboy boots in the photo where he's sitting down. He's got the leaning in on the cane, and he's got his boots on. So however mangled and bloody his foot was, he was still cool enough and knew that he couldn't just go out there with a cast or Capezios or ballet shoes or comfortable slippers. He put his fucking cowboy boots on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we had him on the show. Killsmith Goes West is the name of his latest album. He has a sort of an alter ego character named Killsmith who does the music is more country Western influenced. I don't want to totally put it in a pigeonhole.
Yeah, it's kind of cowpunk a little bit, or
it's a little garagey and cowboy, like old school cowboy. So he was on to tell us a little bit about that, which was interesting too. And we also learned, or maybe we already knew and had him elaborate a little bit, that's his pet snake on the front of the Killer album.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
What is the name of the snake? Cochina?
Oh, I don't know.
Dang. I don't know. And if that's Spanish for something X-rated, I'm sorry.
Why?
But anyway, he was great, Neil Smith. And we also had Michael Bruce, guitarist from the original Alice Cooper Band as well. So thank you, Paul, for hooking
both
us
of those.
up. Yeah.
Oh, so I was gonna Gene Hoglan.
Oh yeah, I was gonna Gene Hoglan.
Yeah, I was
It's
gonna
like his
say,
name is a
look, a
verb.
squirrel, Gene Hoglan.
It's like you turned his name into a verb. I was gonna.
You know what? His name should be a verb. We should start a petition to count Gene Hoglan as a verb.
Yes. He was great too, man. What a nice guy.
He's the best.
And so much history.
I'm pining for a part 2, Gene Hoglan, because so much stuff to talk about with that. If you like thrash metal, and you know, not just thrash metal, but you know, if you like Dark Angel and Slayer and the like, you've got to spend some time and watch that episode, because of the things that we get to talk about with him are legendary. I mean, there's mention of some of those items on his website. I'm sure it's been written about, publications, you know, interviews with Gene where he's spoken freely and open about all of those stories. He was great, and he doesn't mind telling that story for the 1,000th time to us.
Yeah.
Tell us another one, Uncle Gene. You know, I could, you know, we'll have the same interview again and he won't even mind. So.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought him up, because not only was he a great guest on the show, but he was a super hospitable host when he showed up here in Austin to play.
Death to All.
Death to All. And it was a tribute to Death, of course, and a band that Gene played in for a certain period of time. But Jason was kind enough to reach out to Gene, and Gene then invited me and my son to the show. My son is an aspiring drummer. So Gene was kind enough to let my son watch him play from literally sitting at his feet on stage. And I don't think my kid will ever forget that, because he got to watch one of the masters closer than anyone could imagine ever seeing him work. You know, my son was taking videos, he was watching his hands and feet, and just and then Gene was kind enough to introduce my son to the crowd.
Yeah, and I like how Dash leaned over and like cheesed out, hey, yeah. You know, that was the best.
Yeah,
what a moment.
Yes, thank you, Gene Hoglan.
Unforgettable memories.
Guy. Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I have that was sort of one that I didn't know if we were going to be able to pull in, and that was Rudy Sarzo. Yes. Rudy Sarzo was on our show.
Let's just say his name 30 more times.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy, you can't say it enough.
Sarzo.
Absolute legend. Maybe one of the biggest names we've ever had on the show. I've never really taken roll call, but it certainly ranks high up in there. Rudy, of course, Quiet Riot, Whitesnake, Ozzy Osbourne's band, and then some time with Dio and Blue Oyster Cult, and so he shared some time with us talking about Quiet Riot had put out a single. Oh my God, the title's going to escape me now, but there was a really heartfelt video. It was sort of a tribute to Kevin Dubrow and Frankie Banali, who are both no longer with us, unfortunately. But Rudy spent obviously a great deal of time with both of those guys. And so he was kind enough to come on the show and talk to us about his memories and friendship with those guys. And of course, then the interview spun into Randy Rhoads and Ozzy Osbourne. And I just couldn't believe we had him on the show. As someone who grew up watching him on MTV in the early days of MTV, watching the whole Metal Health video and Come On Feel the Noise, and then watching the televised Ozzy Osbourne concert when he was in the band with Randy Rhoads, I couldn't believe he was on our show.
Yeah, there might have been some star strikes.
Possibly, yeah.
A starstruck Jason and Dave.
I wouldn't rule it out. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
Hey,
how could you not? I mean,
it happens.
It's pretty legendary.
It's Rudy Sarzo.
Kind of started, that guy has played with everyone. If you turn on a Whitesnake video and there's Rudy Sarzo. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, see? It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a huge deal. I mean,
Yeah.
when you think about his track record, the funny thing is he's on a bunch of albums. I won't say a bunch, but he's on a handful of key records that he didn't actually play on. He came in right when the records were completed.
So he's not on the record.
Right.
That you
But he
would
joined
think,
the band is immediately afterward and did all the touring and was in all the videos and was in all the promotional posters and that sort of thing. And he's very open about that. He doesn't try to keep any secrets and make you believe that he did something.
Well, he can play bass.
Oh, yeah. He can do that.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's good, but he may or may not be on the record you're holding in your hand that has his face on it.
Correct. And I think,
but you, like you said, it's interesting to hear him be, humorous about that.
Yeah.
And okay with that.
Yeah.
He's a consummate professional.
Yeah. He's very comfortable with his position and what he's done and where he's been. And he'll talk openly about the things that he might be credited for that he didn't do. Right. And you got to love that sort of honesty. I was just, as you said earlier, possibly a little starstruck to have Rudy Sarzo on the podcast. Sure. Yeah. Hey, well, a guest that we had that I got to give you credit for, and people went crazy about this, is you managed to get your old bandmate Billy White, the guitarist from Watchtower, on this show.
Yeah.
And people were commenting like they haven't seen, it was like a Sasquatch sighting or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like seeing an alien or something, because he's been low key for a long, long time and doesn't do a lot of press and doesn't do a lot of metal or hard rock anymore. But
yeah, it's no secret that our audience is more like, heavy metal hit parader or something. It's not very, you don't, it's not, we don't have pamphlets in the yoga section. I'm not making fun. I'm saying, it's not, you wouldn't find it in the breathing techniques by, Buddhist priest, book, section and borders, right?
He should do a cover band called Buddhist Priest.
Well, it's probably already been done.
Probably has.
Yeah. So what would be the attire, See what I mean? It's not, would it sound like, would you be singing like Rob Halford? Would you be throat singing like Tibetan monks?
I have no idea, but tell people where Billy is today in terms of his personal life and his music and what he's doing.
Well, I feel like he's more one note for a really long time, as opposed to a million notes in 5 seconds, which is what he's known for.
Right.
Where he is he does retreats. He has classes. He is a priest. He is very chill and he's very enlightened. And, he's always kind of been this kind of special guy. And he always let me be me, and I always let him be him. And that's why we've been able to be in touch. If you expect someone to be a certain way all the time, you might get heartbroken.
Yeah.
You see and that's something that you learn as you go through life. That's a little bit of wisdom. I'm not calling myself wise. I'm letting you understand that if you have expectations of me, you might not understand. One day you might learn something about me that, wait, what? Because you didn't understand that I'm going to be me. I don't care what it's about. You do you, man. Anyway, that's a thing. And Billy White's always been, you could say, odd, but that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
And he helped create a style of music because he was being him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we got so much feedback from that episode because people had just kind of given up on ever hearing from him again, because he does lead a much more quieter, a much more spiritual life than in years past. He's certainly not playing the twiddly twiddly type stuff that he was doing with Watchtower. It's a calmer, soother lifestyle for Billy White. But you were able to get him on the show and talk to us, and he was great. And I love that people appreciated it, because he has more fans out there than he might be aware. Like, people were
he has no
really
idea.
surprised.
Yeah, he has no idea. That's how humble and true to himself that he is.
Yeah.
He's very minimalistic.
One of the things he talked to us about that maybe our broader audience would be more familiar with is after Watchtower, he played on Don Dokken's solo album called Up From the Ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And that album not only had Don Dokken on vocals and Billy on guitar, but also had Mickey D on drums. Peter Baltas from Accept was the bass player, and John Norum from Europe was the other guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that album got a lot of commercial fanfare, but if you ask Dokken fans, they all love it and swear by it. And if you ask music nerds and musician types, they all go on and on about the caliber of talent in that band. So you might look out for that too. Billy White's all over that.
Well, that was kind of a special interview. I mean, I couldn't believe myself, because he would have been I would have been fine with him going, I'm going to say no. And I would have been fine. Yeah. He said yes. And then he goes, sure, I'll do that. But I don't think I have anything really to talk about. I go, oh my God. See, so he's kind of, and I'm not name calling, but he was clueless.
He's just unaware. He's
unaware is the right word. Thank you.
Yeah. He's unaware of his own impact.
Yeah.
And as you said, and as our listeners will know, Watchtower as a whole is often cited by, the Dream Theaters of the world and the Voivods, and even Metallica as being one of these groundbreaking bands where all the players were very uber talented, and they managed to put together jagged pieces that made no sense and somehow made it work. And Billy was a prime reason for that. So there's a lot of respect out there for not only Billy, but Watchtower in general, and maybe a little bit more curiosity around Billy, because he absolutely just disappeared.
Yeah, I don't like to think that he disappeared. I just think that his motives and what spotlights he decided that he deemed necessary were not necessary at all.
Yeah.
And so he is just being Billy White, and his name is like, even though he kind of ghosted, his name, you say his name in a certain crowd and people turn and go, oh my God, did you know who Billy White is?
Yeah.
When I was doing those Armored Saint gigs, and we were in New Jersey, Montclair, and there was people hanging out, dressing room, Armored Saint, and Frank Bello was there, and there was a bunch of people coming in because they know Armored Saint's a big surprise, right?
Yeah,
there's a bunch of people there, so a bunch of people who like knew David Pritchard from the original Armored Saint band, blah blah blah. There's people in there, and they knew who I was, and they start talking to me about Billy White, and I'm like, whoa, okay, wow, all right, sure, man, I'll talk about Billy White. And it was just interesting being out of my little pond, so to speak. I know that I feel weird saying that, but it I go somewhere else where it's a big pond, and I'm like feeling little, because I'm like, I'm just visiting. this ain't my house. You know what I mean?
Right.
And someone turns to me and wants to talk about my stuff, and they bring up Billy White. It's, that gives you kind of this like explosion of excitement that someone remembers and will never forget stuff like that. So that's kind of what I feel like in the interview with Billy. I tried to make him feel like you're unaware of the impact that you've created. I was holding up stuff. You drew this when you were a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's like, "Oh my God, you have that?" So, whatever. It's important. And one of those things I held up was the fucking Watchtower album cover. You designed this, dude.
Yeah.
People love this. People pay big money to just gander upon this creation that you wrote in fart mist and crayon. Whatever that is.
I have a feeling you could tell Billy 1,000 times how important he is, and it would just go right over his head.
Yeah, he's not the same.
He's not hung up on those types of things.
No, that's not his world. So,
yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. Well, he was great, and we had a lot of great guests. I know we've touched on some of our favorites. I wanted to move on to a couple other topics.
Yeah,
unless you have another guest that you want to put the spotlight on.
No, I'm super happy with our last sort of run over the past couple of months. Mark Lopes, I'm excited about, which will have aired by the time it's coming out next week, I believe. But the current new-ish. He's the new guy in Metal Church.
Yes.
And I recently have gotten to do some hanging with him, and he was great to come on. And he's just a super guy. And so that was a good one this year. There's a bunch. There's many that I am extremely excited about, and I'm glad that we're sitting here talking about the year that we had. Yay, 2023.
Yeah. So, Danny Lilker as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. I meant to bring him up. Holy crap. That's like serious. That's a serious guest.
Yeah. Yeah. Danny Lilker, man, what a character he was.
No, he was real, dude.
Yeah. And we often say someone was, super chill. I think Lilker takes the chill cake, man.
But
and
not here to make up shit.
No.
The heart is on his sleeve, right?
Oh yeah. He was just as real as they get, and
that's scary for some people to not have any facade whatsoever. There's zero. He's exactly today as he was 40 years ago. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
And he'll talk about the past, and he'll talk about the future, and that's just a great episode. That one will be aired.
By the time people are listening to this, it will be out. So go back a couple episodes when after you're done listening to this, and check out the Danny Lilker episode.
You know what I think that's really great is when you do your thing and you announce, we just had a conversation with, whoever, Dan Lilker or Gene Hoglan or Billy White or whatever. And sometimes I'll go in and just it'll be on my news feed, and I'll see it, and the immediate comments. The episode hadn't even been fucking created yet.
Yeah.
And you're just like blogging, hey, we just had a da-da-da, so be on the lookout for so-and-so, and people are going, OMG. Next one. Holy shit. Next one. No way.
or legend. We see that one quite often, and that's always humbling. And
my mind is blown just as much as the people that are in that thread. And sometimes I'll respond and go, dude, I know, right? Exclamation point, question mark.
I saw you comment on the Lilker episode.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's people are actually writing that kind of shit.
Right. And I love that. And I saw you comment on the Lilker episode.
I'm just as excited as the people who are going to be excited when it comes out.
I think you said it was one of your, if not your favorite guest of the year. It was definitely in the top.
It's in the top. because how real the guy was. It's stupid to say this so many times and overuse the word legend, because I say it to his face. Well, via this medium here, he's the reason a lot of that exists. And what I mean by that, quote, that is crossover and thrash. And dude, do I need to go down the shopping list that is Dan Lilker?
Nah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
I told him during the show, I mean, he is one of those guys who is an architect of the sound that we all know and love, that came to be known in broader terms as thrash metal, and even the big four and crossover and all that stuff that we love so much. It didn't exist before guys like Danny Lilker helped put it together. And he's not alone, and he knows he's not alone, and we don't pretend that he is alone, but he was in on the ground level for sure.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and he was a lot of fun. He was fun to hang out with, too.
He was fun.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to cover a couple more things. And one of them is, I don't know that we're going to have much to say on this, but I wanted to pick your brain anyway. So 2023 saw the farewell of Kiss, a band that you and I have acknowledged more times than people care to listen to as being our gateway band, the band that turned us into rock and roll lifers. A tremendous, within arm's reach, you've got the Destroyer album. How about that?
That's one of my top 5 album covers that I had, that episode recent I did with that hangout I did with Claudio. Yeah.
Ken Kelly.
That's right.
Yeah. He also did Love Gun. You know what else he did that I did not know? He did the Rainbow Rising cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so apparently Kiss is done touring as human beings. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on, number one, how do you feel about Ace and Peter not being on stage for that last show? And then number two, what are your thoughts on this whole Avatar thing going forward?
Well, what I've seen of the Avatar, I'm just going to just blindly dig into every orifice of your question. The Avatar thing, from what I've seen just online, just clips and stuff, doesn't look cool. It does not look cool. I think that it's, how long have they been working on that hologram idea,
Yeah.
I think that it's a great idea to maybe make a cartoon movie and use what I've seen as they're calling avatars, and that's going to be them. And I mean, it's still pumped in music. It's fake recorded tracks, and you're just watching this video game creature of the four, the demon, the star child, the spaceman, and the Catman.
Yeah.
I don't think, because people are already confused, and I've seen a few people say, so where am I going to go to see this show? And they don't realize you're going to go to Madison Square Garden.
Right.
You're going to go to the Sphere. Because I can see that in Las Vegas at the Sphere. There won't be a stage. You'll just be sitting in that ball looking up at the ceiling with those video game characters of Kiss just flying around with pumped in Kiss music. And you know what? That sounds like a really cool Vegas attraction. But for it to be a touring hologram, I mean, Dio did it with a live band, and then they had this sort of area where Dio would pop up, and it's a hologram, and then obviously they have a track of him singing, and the band's playing the music, and it's lined up with, and it's a production. That's been done, but that doesn't sound like the same thing, really.
Right.
The same haters that were hating on that Dio hologram, I understand you're feeling like you're getting ripped off in some. They think that that's a soulless thing, to do that. Well, you should be the ones complaining about this Kiss thing. I'm not even here to complain about it. I'm just saying it doesn't look that cool to me. I'd rather watch black and white Winterland 1975 San Francisco on my TV at home.
Right.
Because it's real dudes, playing and just killing it. And it's raw and punk rock and so over the top.
Yeah.
And this is not over the top. Kiss is originally supposed to be over the top. And this is not over the top.
Right.
Is Scooby-Doo going to come out? See where my brain is?
Yeah. I commented somewhere on social media on this topic, and I basically said just what you said. Like it or not, this thing is going to play arenas, and people are going to show up.
Yeah.
I don't have that confirmed. I have no idea. I'm just speculating, but I could see this touring as an arena attraction. And guess what? I could see people buying, $200 tickets to go see it too. And I just don't get that, man. I don't get it.
They haven't really, I'm uninformed, and I apologize.
Nobody's informed yet.
Okay, that's fair. So listen, what if, because I don't know, is Kiss going to go make a new record, and then they're going to pump in that new record, and these cartoons are going to jump around and mime to the new record? You see what I'm trying to say? It could go that way. Are they going to go into the studio and record themselves playing live, and then use that live? And people, how y'all doing? Is Paul gonna do his thing? And then they're gonna make the avatar move the mouth to what he's doing in the studio, pre-recorded live. See, so could be kind of interesting on those lines. But uninformed is where we are right now. So.
Yeah, we're uninformed. To be fair, we have no idea what the future plans are. But I just got to say, honestly, I wasn't that interested in seeing the quote unquote real Kiss in the past 10 or 15 years. So why would I go see an Avatar? They don't really change up the set list that much. I've just seen them so many times. Ticket prices are outrageous. Why would I go see an Avatar of this band? And
Into the Road Tour, it seems like, and this goes back to part of your initial question, why didn't they just lease a bus and put Ace and Peter on it and have them walk out for Shout It Out Loud at the very end?
Yeah. I mean,
and pay them to be there.
Right.
And come out and hug and do a bow.
And that's it.
And Ace and Peter probably wouldn't have even had to dress up and wear the makeup. Be comfortable, be Ace Frehley, be Peter Criss, come out and hang with us and just chill. We'll, maybe do a Q&A in the lobby. Who knows? Something cool.
Something cool. But I think Kiss would have gone out in a more favorable light had they done that. And the people that were there would have had bragging rights on something huge.
Well, they would have shat.
Yeah. That's what they could call the Avatar band. Shit.
Oh, shit.
Okay, enough on Kiss, but I was just curious.
And that's kind of where I'm at being as uninformed dumbass as I am. But I like it that you asked a real question.
Yeah, and you're not a dumbass. I don't think there's been a lot of public information yet, so we really don't know.
Well, and they've said farewell before.
Right.
So they could do more gigs. Why don't they just play 10 shows a year?
Well, that's not off the table from my understanding. I think the big hubbub with this farewell end of the road thing is they were no longer going to do it. And every band says this. They got to put the little asterisk next to it and say, hey, we never said we wouldn't play again. We just said we're not going to do the 6-month-long tours and whatever. And I get all that, but just call it what it's going to be, okay? So anyway, I know how much Kiss means to me and you, and supposedly this was the last big bow. Who knows? We've heard it before, and this whole Avatar thing is a new concept. And personally, from what I've seen and heard about it initially, I I have no interest in all, but that's just me. I wanted to touch on a couple of live shows before we close out. I wanted to give a shout to our buddy Bobby Rock, who hooked me up at the Pantera show in Austin in late August. Oh my God, it was brutal hot. But I want to say I saw Pantera with Benanti and Zach, and I got to say, it was a great time, man. I know there's been a lot of speculation, or a lot of debate rather, about this whole doing it without the Abbott brothers. I get it. But I will say that as far as, 2 hours worth of entertainment and hearing those songs again and all their monstrous glory, it was awesome. And I had a great time. That was a standout gig for me this year. And I wanted to tip my hat to Bobby Rock for making that happen.
Yeah, Bobby's good people, and that's not a secret.
Yeah. So the other thing, and I'll close with this, I saw a show the other night that may be the best thrash metal show I've seen in 35 years, and that is Fugitive.
Go Dave. Tell us all about it.
Oh, man. Fugitive, for those of you who don't know, is a band that is led by a guitarist, Blake Ibanez, who was in the band Power Trip. They're from Texas. They're from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Power Trip was starting to make some waves. They had the respect of all their peers. They put out a couple of amazing records. Go check out an album called Nightmare Logic and another one called Manifest Decimation. And there's a couple EPs and a few other things that you can find by Power Trip. But you owe it to yourself. If you love Metallica's Kill 'Em All, if you love
Seven Churches by Possessed, Bonded by Blood by Exodus, and then even some of the crossover punk stuff like Cro-Mags and stuff like that, go check out Power Trip. Okay, so Power Trip, I hate to be giving a history lesson here, but they weren't that well known when they came to an end. So just a quick synopsis. They ceased to exist because their singer Riley Gale passed away, unfortunately. Fugitive, the band that I saw the other night, is Blake's new band. So it's Blake from Power Trip with some other guys in his group, and they were amazing, man. They kind of pick up right where Power Trip left off in terms of sound and energy, but they blew this place up, man. And sounds like you're calling it. We're doing a quick wrap here. It's only the second week of December, if even that. And I feel like you're saying this is your show of the year.
I think it is.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it was the show of the year. Yes, and Fugitive to me is just the best band of that style of music to come around in a long time. And I said this previously about Power Trip, and once Power Trip was done, I thought, oh man, it's a shame that didn't last longer, because that's like lightning in a bottle. It might never come around again anytime soon. But because Blake is involved, it is coming around and it's back. And I've seen Fugitive. My son's seen him 6 times now in about 3 different cities. And I've seen him 3 times in a couple different cities, including their very first show in Dallas. We made a road trip to be there for that. And anyway, if you like I said, early thrash metal, death metal, crossover punk, go check out Fugitive. They have a release out right now called Maniac, and it's amazing. And so the capper for the show that I saw was they billed it as Fugitive plus stick around for a special guest. So the underground started buzzing that it might be a Power Trip reunion of sorts, minus obviously the singer, Riley Gale. And indeed it was. So just after we all got our asses kicked and handed to us by Fugitive, here comes Power Trip. The first time that band has gotten back together on stage to play in front of a live audience, the place went absolutely ballistic. And I thought it was interesting that they did it in a city that wasn't their hometown. In Austin, they did the show in Austin. They're from Dallas-Fort Worth. So the place was, I've never seen a crowd go that completely insane. They were jumping off the balconies. It was insane. And props to Fugitive for keeping metal like that alive. And
I think when you texted me after the fact, and you were excited.
Yeah.
And I was, and you know, the videos were already hitting my feed, and my buddy Victor Guerrero was there, and he's always posting. He's on YouTube. He's Montopolis Thrasher. So
Okay.
I'm sure everybody has seen Victor's videos. He's at all. He's Possessed videos are out. He's goes to all of the underground thrash metal metal in general.
Yeah.
And his videos are great. And he's just shooting them with his phone. As far as I know, he's shooting them with his phone. And I saw some of his,
Mm-hmm.
and you were excited. And I think my response was, thank God this is still happening and that you have a teenage son who's into this crazy shit that we saw happen the first time around.
Yes, exactly.
And so this is, you know, and Blake's young too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's not a teenager, but you know what I mean.
Right.
So the fact that this is still going on, you know, 40 years later,
exactly,
it's amazing. And I'm extremely happy just overall, just as a spectator standing outside licking my wounds from when I was 20 years old.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the second side of your the other side of the text that you sent back to me, your response was you weren't only happy to know that this was out there and that it exists, you were proud that it was taking place in Texas by a Texas band.
That's right.
Yeah.
A Texas band
carrying the torch, leading the way. I'm telling you, people, if you like that style of music, go check out Fugitive. They are the new kings of metal. And I loved every minute of the insanity. And I think, like you said, we're old enough. We got to see Metallica on their first couple of tours, and we got to see Slayer on their first couple of tours. Yeah. My son and people his age have never seen anything like that.
That's right.
I was so thrilled to see an audience be that receptive and go that bonkers for that type of music.
It's kind of interesting, and I don't mean to just, you know, underline that we're old as fuck, but listen, we were going to concerts before Metallica was a band.
True. Yeah. And Blake and the guys in Fugitive are youngsters, man. Like you said, they're not teenagers, but I would say, you know, maybe early 30s, maybe. They certainly weren't around, you know, when Metallica.
No, they didn't see, you know, Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning tours like we did.
No. Yeah. But they did their homework and they studied hard.
Of course.
And
they're killing it, and they're obviously of the cloth. So
yes.
So do you have anything 2023, and this will be our complete to complete our 2023 wrap up? Do you have any things, any moments or cherished moments or things that you're grateful for this year?
Oh man. I mean,
of course you are. Of course you do.
There's plenty. Off the top of my head, first and foremost is my family and my son. We had so many great musical moments this past year. Pantera was one of them. Fugitive was one of them. Gene Hoglan was one of them. So a lot of bonding over concerts and going to the record stores, and just me listening to him play all the various instruments around the house. That's gratifying to me. And if I'm honest, you know, I've my circle of friends and this podcast. I mean, I look forward to this week after week. I mean, you know what we forgot to mention? Oh my God. Okay, real quick. I gotta say, RockNPod was a highlight of last year.
That was last year, yeah.
Yes, 2023.
No, was it March?
It was March of 2023.
Yeah, you're right. It was this year that we're talking about.
Correct. March of 2023. And it was a podcast convention in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to give everybody the fast version of it. Jason and I were invited to set up a table and sell some merch and do some interviews. And we were one of the featured, we were featured on the main stage interviewing Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister. That was
Thank you, Tyson Leslie, for suggesting Talk Louder to Chris Cisniak. If I said your name wrong, Chris, I'm sorry.
Yes, Chris and his crew, they were great. They were great hosts. But Jason and I had an amazing time. We did a round of interviews. All of that is on our website, by the way. We did a whole series of interviews from RockNPod. We had Don Jameson. We had Anthony Quarter from Tora Tora, Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sisters, Stevie Rochelle from Tough, Paul Taylor, Tuck Smith. Yeah, I mean, we had a really good time. And the reason I came back
Martin
to
Motnick from Accept.
Yes, Martin Motnick from Accept. Mm-hmm. And the reason I came back to RockNPod is because of the question you just asked me, what am I grateful for? One of the things I enjoyed the most out of going to RockNPod, and here's the mushy part, folks, is I really enjoyed spending time with you, traveling with you, bonding with you, hanging out with you, eating at PF Chang's with you.
Ditto.
We had a really cool time just being bros on the road. And I know you have those moments with your bandmates, but I don't play in a band and I'm not in one of your bands. So for me to get on a plane and go somewhere and do our thing together, and see each other in the lobby first thing in the morning with one eye open and your first cup of coffee, it was a really cool adventure and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, and Rick Slowbull, if I'm saying his name wrong, sorry,
Rick.
dude. Our driver Rick was the most. He was the host with the most.
Yes, Rick.
And I see now he's on my feed, and I see him, doing his thing, being his Rick self and awesome self. What a great dude that was.
Yes,
and we got to meet and hang with him. I have a feeling we'll see him again in the future.
Yeah. I sure hope so.
Yeah,
RockNPod's been postponed until 2025, I think. So I don't think we'll have an opportunity to go back in 2024. I think they're got big plans for 2025, and hopefully we'll get to do that again.
Hope so.
It was a blast.
So. Yeah,
it was a blast.
I am, if I may, I am grateful for my wife Kate, and just pretty much everything you said. My family, I got to see my brother Joe, he lives in Maui. He was in the Lahaina fires. He survived all that. And everybody who donated money to the GoFundMe, he and I and my family really, we could have fucking lost him.
Yeah.
So big hugs to my big brother Joe, who survived all that heinous bullshit over there and is thriving now.
Yeah.
It was good to see him because he just came for a recent visit. And my brother Randy, who's a survivor and the greatest father to my nephews ever. And he's got cancer, but you wouldn't know it. The guy's healthier than me, so it's kind of crazy. I don't mean to make light of the situation, but it's important for you to know that he's doing great.
Yes.
But, dude's going to chemo, and it's fucking nuts. I can't believe it. So I'm grateful that he's killing it and hanging in there. And my brother Mitch, of course, and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law who live in Vegas. Everybody is hanging in there and hanging tough. And probably as far as like things I've gotten to do this year, because I wore out the fun year I had the year before. We've worn that out. Is the resurgence of Watchtower.
Yes.
I have to say the rehearsals and the hanging with those guys and being on the road, and we did Keep It True in Germany. We did a reunion show in San Antonio, which is also just legendary upon its own. When you say San Antonio and Watchtower in one sentence, it's kind of like, what? So that has happened so far, and we have more to come in 2024. And by the time this episode airs on Talk Louder, we probably will have done the Austin show, which is January 5th at Come and Take It. And that would depend. I don't know. but I'm looking forward to that. And all of that resurgence comes down to one spotlight, and that is Christian Larson. I think I'm saying his name right. Who is the big daddy at Hell's Heroes Festival in Houston? That's his baby, I think. He was the one that contacted me initially and wanted Watchtower to reform with me on vocals to play Hell's Heroes. And as soon as we got together, I hadn't talked to some of these guys. I hadn't seen Doug in decades. Because the last show that I performed with Watchtower was in 2004.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do something in 2010, but it didn't work out with me. They took Alan with them. That's fine. That's all funny and water under the bridge. But the point is I hadn't done this with those Watchtower boys in that long. So for Christian, I hand you this invisible trophy of thank you and gratitude and badassness. Here you go, Christian. Thank you for bringing it back to life for me so I can sing those badass songs again with, people that I helped create something phenomenal with when I was a teenager 40 years ago. So thank you, Christian. So I'm thankful for that as well, because it's just crazy to think that it's, something that you did when you were a child.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Cool.
Lots of great memories in 2023 and a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Man, this has been fun. It's always fun reminiscing. I enjoy these year-end conversations. I hope our listeners enjoy it as well. And as I said, go check out our new redesigned website. All of our previous episodes are there. It's up to 175 or so. I don't know. I can't keep track, but the website looks great. All of our previous episodes are there. You can buy our merch there, t-shirts and coffee mugs. And we thank you for being with us for all these years, going on 3 years now. We appreciate
it's weird to hear that.
I know. Yeah. It's so weird to say that.
All these years.
Yeah.
What?
And maybe all these years isn't, it's a relative concept. But hey, if you would have told me 3 years ago that we'd be saying this 3 years later, I would have never believed it. So 3 years is all those years as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of gas in the tank. So 2024 is underway, and we got a lot of great guests lined up already. So we're going to continue. And on behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, thanking you all for watching and listening to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.